Hello Stampers, my name is Linda Bedinger and I'm an independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator. And today I'd like to show you how I made this Christmas card. I've been fooling around with this for the better part of a couple of days here, trying to figure out all of the measurements and how to put it together, and I think I'm finally there. This is I'm going to stand it up here, although you can't see except that it stands independently. And the other thing, I'll bring it up to show you, see if I can move that right into more where you can see it. So the snowbank is up on dimensional, so it gives a little bit of a 3D effect. Then the tree itself is sitting on a separate band that goes across the middle of the card, and then this exterior piece is extended on the front of the card. And the beauty of all of this is that when we're done, when we fold this card over, I'm going to grab an envelope here. When we fold this card over like this, it fits into our standard medium-sized envelope. So it is 5 1/4 by 4 1/8 in its finished side when it's moved to one side, so it will mail. It's going to be a little thick, but it'll mail. And all of the pieces lay flat for mailing. And sometimes I think on these, if you just put an old piece of retired cardstock or something on the front of it so that they can't feel the bumps on it at the mail, you probably can get away with a regular stamp. Anyway, so that is how I have that set up. And so I'm going to show you what we need to make this pretty little 3D Christmas card. I'm going to set it over to the side here. We need a base that is 7 inches by 4 1/4, and I used Mossy Meadow. Then we need a piece of Very Vanilla that is 3 7/8 by 4 1/8. That's going to sit just inside here. Then we need 4 pieces that will fit once we've got it scored on either side of our card here. And these pieces are all 4 1/8 by 5/8 of an inch. So, oops, that's the wrong one. 4 1/8 by 5/8 of an inch. And that will give us our panels around the side here. Then you need a fairly good sized or several pieces of scrap vanilla to be able to cut out the 2 trees that it takes to do this 3D Christmas tree here. The fawn is actually cut out of Very Vanilla paper. We need enough, again, to cut your snowbank, this strip across here, and I'll give you the measurements on this strip, and your sentiment. So you need quite a bit of scrap vanilla to cut out those pieces. Then you need a piece of Mossy Meadow for the front of the card here that is 5 1/2 by 3/4, and then this piece is 5 3/8 by 5/8, so it will just nest on top and create this strip across the bottom. One more piece, 1/2 inch by 4 3/4 of an inch, and that is for the little band across the middle that will suspend our tree. Oh, you need 1 piece of soft suede to cut out your deer. And let's see, the deer cut out is, you need something that's about 4 inches by 2 1/2 will allow you to cut the deer. And on this card, what I have used is winter woods. I've used this tree here, and it coordinates with this In the Woods framelit set. And this die set has the 2 trees that cut out this 3D, and let me show you what that looks like, is you stamp your tree twice, and one die, this one, cuts out the tree itself. Then this die cuts a smaller tree that fits on top of this one and cuts these little flaps into the tree so that you can flip those up and get that 3D look on your tree. And you can get even more 3D if you put these together, and I think I did use some dimensionals on the back here, I did, to give this a little bit more dimension. So I used from the stamp set, I used the tree right here, this pine tree, and from the framelits, I used this to create my snowbank, and all I did was cut across a piece of Fairy Vanilla here with this piece, and then cut this down to 1.5 inches on this side, and that gives you about 1 5/8 on this side. So I used this, and this die, and then this tree. Then for the background on my card here, I could have just used this tree, and you're certainly welcome to do that if you don't want to do too many stamp sets here. But I'm very fond of this pine tree from Lovely as a Tree, and so I used this pine tree to stamp all of my background pines. And it gives a little interest in that these pine boughs have a tendency to end up, and these are very flat across. So it gives a little contrast to the tree there. And then the stamp or the sentiment in this one is thinking of you this season, which would have been lovely. But I frankly, for the scale of card, did not want too big an oval on this end. So I used one of the layering stitched ovals. And this one is the one that looks to be a little over 2.5 wide and or long, and a little over 1.5 wide. So it's that one of the stitched ovals, and I thought that one was the right scale for my tree. Okay, so then the other thing that I used was the die set from the Dashing Deer, Detailed Deer Thinlits, and from this one I used this little fawn here to cut out this guy, and then I used the big deer with the big antlers for this one. So that's what I used to cut out my dies. So this isn't one that's real fast and simple. There's quite a few pieces to it in the end. And so that's what we're going to make, and I think we'll just get started. And I'm going to start by doing my stamping first. And I used Mossy Meadow as the ink for this project. So I have my Mossy Meadow ink pad here, and what I'm going to do is stamp all of these vanilla pieces here. I'll leave these pieces here, and then I'll show you about the scoring on the various pieces. So I'm going to grab some scratch paper here because I'm stamping off and on here, and I'm going to grab my stamp from Lovely as a Tree, and I'm going to ink that up here. And what I did was I used kind of a little damp rag that I have here, and I wiped the ink off of the trunk because we really didn't need the trunk and the bottom ground on this one, and I didn't want any lines where I didn't want them. So what I'm doing here is I'm stamping a couple of different generations here because I wanted kind of a full background. And then let me ink this up again. Now my snowbank is going to come from about 1 inch to up to about 1 5/8. So I don't think, let me measure here. Where's my snowbank? Here it is. That's going to be more than covered. So getting up that far is plenty. So now I'm going to take the ink pad to the stamp this time and just again wipe off that stem and ground at the bottom, and I'm just going to keep inking across my page here. And you know, that might just do it. There we go. It looks like that's all I needed. Okay, so now I am ready to stamp these 4 little pieces that are going to go on the edge of my card here. And I'm going to just stamp this, and I'm not going to ink up that stem. And I'm going to try and stamp this very straight on this strip. See that? And then I'm doing it at an angle, so I need to help myself here by trying to stamp this kind of straight on this piece. There we go. And I'll stamp another little bit down here. And I'm going to do that to all 4 of these strips. Stamp straight up and down, and again here at the bottom. And because this band is running across, you just have to basically get the main part stamped here. Here we go. Oops. Like that. And there we go. All right, so that is all of my stamping done. And to save a little time, I've already stamped and cut out my trees. But this is just a matter of stamping this twice and then using the dies and then flipping up these little pieces. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is I did use my shimmer paint. And I could have done this on white and used the frost white, but I thought it might be kind of interesting to do this one with this champagne mist shimmer paint. So what I'm going to do is take my brush here, and I'm going to grab a little bit of this shimmer paint, and I fully expect this to move the ink around on my images, and I'm fine with that because I liked them better when the vanilla didn't show much anyway. So I'm just going to put some shimmer paint just right around the edges of this background tree and purposely move a little bit of ink out on those edges. There we go. So I'm going to let that dry for a second, and I'm going to have to dip into my pot here to get some more ink or more shimmer paint on my brush. And for this one, I'm covering the whole thing. At first I was just doing the edges, but I liked it better when it had more coverage of the shimmer paint and really got some sparkle to it. It doesn't take yet, even at that, a whole lot of the shimmer paint, but I'll bring that up so you can see it, and hopefully the camera will catch the shimmery nature of that. I think you can see that a little bit. There you go. Yeah, and it's just very pretty, and it's got kind of a a goldish cast to it, and very, very pretty, I think. So there we go. We're going to let those two dry just a bit, and then what I'm going to do is take a little bit of water on my my little rag here, and I'm going to push all of that shimmer paint off of this brush, only because it had picked up the green ink. So I want this pretty free of any green ink. Okay, because I've also cut my oval, and you'll see here that I added some shimmer paint to the oval as well. And on this, you do get a little bit of brush strokes, so I thought I would put this shimmer paint on using circular motion to see if I could avoid any streaky lines, and it looks like that might do it. So I'm just going to add my shimmer paint to my piece here using kind of a circular motion and getting plenty of shimmer paint on here. It's so pretty that until I don't see any brush strokes at all. There we go. All right, and so now while those pieces are drying, we can get to, and be very careful with this glimmer paint. If this gets on your clothes, it pretty much doesn't come out. Now ask me how I know that. I ruined a pair of slacks yesterday messing around with this, and tipped the bottle over and got some on pants, and immediately did something about it, and it did not come out. What we're going to do next is I want to show you how to score everything. So there's two pieces that have to be scored. This green base, and then this piece, which is the piece for behind here that's going to hold the tree. This is 4 3/4 by 1/2 inch, and I've scored this at 3/8 of an inch on either side. And then what we're going to do is just fold those two pieces back, and that is going to sit on the inside of our card and hold our tree on. All right, so for this piece, what I have done is got my trimmer here, and I scored this piece at 1.5, and then 3/4, and the same thing on the other side. So then this is 1.5. So it's 3/4 and then 3/4 more. So it's 1.5 and 3/4 on both sides. There's my 3/4. And okay, so, and what we're going to do with this piece is we're going to fold this end in. Let me get my bone folder here and give it a nice good burnish, and fold this one in, and then we're going to fold these center ones back out to the outside. Okay, and when you do that, when you stretch one side out, you should be at exactly 5.5 inches, so that'll fit into your envelope. And so there we go. Now we can go ahead and glue these pieces in, And so I've just got a tiny little border around this one, mostly so that it doesn't impede the folding in of this two side panels here. And I'm going to put that down with just some snail. Better use my silicone mat. Okay, so we can lay this piece down with the tiniest border all the way around. There we go. And then these pieces, we're going to do exactly the same thing. All right, so there we've got our base pretty well done. All right, now I'm going to take that snowbank and, oh, you know, I did use a little shimmer paint on the snowbank, so I guess I'm going to have to get my shimmer paint back out again. And my brush, forgot about that part. And let's see, we probably, if I shake that up, I may have enough in the lid. Let's see. I probably do. And originally I was just going to, and I think what I'm going to do on this is also do this in a circular motion so that I don't get the brush marks. All right, well, while I was going to put that down, I'm going to need to let that dry for a second. So while that's drying, I think our tree should be dry, and we can put that together. So now we've got all that pretty shimmery paint all over our two trees, and what we're going to do is layer one of these on top of the other, and I'm going to use some mini dimensionals. Okay, there's our pretty three-dimensional tree. Just very pretty with that shimmer paint on it. Okay, and I think my snowbank is now dry enough. And what I'm going to do on the snowbank is use some regular size dimensionals here. Okay, I think it's ready to go. Now I'm going to need to take my deer, and what I decided to do is put the deer so that he was peeking across here. So I'm just going to make sure I get his antlers in here and right about there, and then just put a little pencil mark on his body there. And I'm going to use my snips to kind of cut him off at a bit of an angle. And these are all of the rest of the pieces that we have to go on our card. If I put my deer right down here so that he's peeking in, it looks like I need him at a little steeper angle. There, I think that'll do. And I'm just going to use a little bit of snail on the back of my deer. And we're really not going to see his legs, but that's okay. I think right about there is fine. So we have enough of him that he's peeking in. And now my snowbank is ready to go in place here. And what I'm doing is I'm lining this up with the bottom of this very vanilla panel at the bottom here, so that it is even with that. There we go. And this snowbank on this one is a little bit taller than this one, but I just think it almost, because of the band in front, needs to be a little bit higher up, as does the tree. So now we have this piece to go in place on our card here, like this, to put our tree on. And I think what I'm going to use is Tombow on this one. And on this one, it felt like the tree was a little bit low. So I think I want my tree like right up here. So in order to do that, I need my band that holds the tree to be, it looks like, up about 3/4 of an inch. So what I'm going to do is mark 3/4 of an inch from the bottom of my vanilla panel, and I'm going to put a little tick mark here on my snowbank, which I can erase once I get it in there, and then mark it on this side too, 3/4 of an inch, and put just a little tick mark that probably I'm the only person in the world that can see it. Now I'm going to put some Tombow on my little tabs here. This is how people make those explosion boxes. They put these little strips into the middle to hold the extra pieces that are standing up and out. So there's my 3/4 of a mark on that side. And what I'm going to do is I am going to set that to cover that 3/4 of an inch and push that into that panel and just close it. And then if I've done it right, I should be able to fold this piece in place and have those two pieces, just hold them into place for a few minutes, and don't need a tree in there, and let them have Tombow get its grip. And there we have our strip to hold our tree right right in the middle, and it should bow both directions and be at the same place. There we go. That feels pretty good. Because this is raised on dimensionals, it's giving me a little trouble on this side, but that's fine. Okay, so now we can set our tree in here, and let's see, that's a little bit further up on the tree. Not as much as I'd hoped. All right, well, what we're going to do is put some snail right across the bottom piece of the tree that is going to stick on there, and then to reinforce it, I'm also going to add like 3 glue dots across there, one on either side and one in the middle, to give it some reinforced, because that's all that's holding that tree in place. And so I want to be absolutely sure that that is going to hold, and there is nothing stickier than a glue dot. So I'm going to use both and assure myself that that tree isn't going to be going any place once I set it in place. Now then, what I'm going to do is I have a Post-it note package. There we go. I'll put my Post-it note package in there to give me some support. and set this tree. I want it about, you'll see it's about 1/8 of an inch away from that end here, because I do not want it to interfere with the folding of the card. So there's my tree. So now there's our first 3 layers. We have the background layer, we have the snowbank up a little bit. In fact, that could have gone on double dimensional, so that might have been a way to make it stand out a little bit further. And then this strip across the middle, which still allows the card to fold either direction to fit into your envelope. So that's all ready to go. Now then, we just have the exterior of the card to get done. So let's see here. We have these pieces left. All right, we have a bit more stamping to do now that this is dry. I have my sentiment stamp, and then I'm going to use my Mossy Meadow ink. And I'll tell you, I did do this on purpose, where I put the shimmer paint on before I put on did my stamping, because if you do your stamping and then use your shimmer paint, remember it moved around the ink, and so you'll get streaky sentiment here. So here's my wishing you peace and love, and I'm going to set that on my grid paper here to be about straight, and then set this right in the center. And there we have wishing you peace and love all year long. Isn't that pretty? Very, very pretty. All right, so now we're ready to start assembling these last pieces. All right, the deer. Let me show you what I did to color the deer. I'm going to put away my Mossy Meadow ink, because I think that's all I need it for. And I have 2 blends here that I used on my deer. And so I have the light crumb cake. Make sure that's right. Yes, light crumb cake. And what I did was I colored over the entire little fawn here. And nothing special. I just got him covered, and it took a couple of layers to get the ink so that it looked pretty uniform across the whole deer. And there I've got him covered pretty much. And when I pulled up images of fawns, what I found is they had those cute little dot markings, and the lower ends of their feet are a little bit lighter. So I am taking the small end of my color lifter, and what I'm going to do is lift that color so that the very vanilla underneath starts to show through. And what I'm doing is just making little dot marks here on my deer, kind of random shapes, and then I took a little bit of the color off of the bottom of his feet. And so there you can see that I've lifted the color just in some spots, and it gives him the look of a fawn. The only other thing I did do was I took my black marker, because it bothers me when animals don't have eyes, and since I didn't stamp him, I decided to just give him a little eye, and I gave an eye also to the larger deer. I always feel better when they have eyes. Okay, so there's all our pieces. So what I'm going to do is just go ahead and put the rest of this together, and I'm going to layer these two pieces together, and the amount of margin on this is very small. I just wanted to have enough so that you would get the same kind of outline that the rest of the card has. And so there we go. And then this piece goes all the way across our card and is 5.5 inches long. So we only need a little bit of snail on the ends of this. And because it's going to end up being manipulated back and forth, I'm going to do the same thing I did on the Christmas tree, and I'm going to put an extra glue dot on either side here to help hold this final piece in place. So I'm going to put one on either side just to help hold that together. Now I'm going to put this so that it is up about 1/4 of an inch and even with that end of the card. There we go. And then straight across here and even with this end of the card. And there we have our card perfectly set. Either way it can be folded. Looks like it's going to fold just a little bit easier this way. And then we can put our deer on, and I just use snail on the fawn and put him into place here. If you'll notice, he's almost straight across the bottom here, but just over the edge of that piece there. And then this I put here, and I think I like this one better because I can see the snowbank on this one and it gives me all of my layers. I think this tree could still be a little bit higher up, but I'm not displeased with that. So what I need is a little bit of snail right down the center of my sentiment here. I'm going to drop that into place. There we go. And that's pretty much the card. I did think afterwards to accent the gold that maybe some of these little pearls, these gold pearls, might be kind of interesting on here. If I put one up here and I put one on the top of my tree. Needs one more. I don't like things in twos, I like them in threes. So I'm going to add one more pearl on the inside on the back. And there we have our project for the day. I have wrestled with this card for days, trying to get the measurements exactly right and keep it as easy for you to case as possible. And I think this one works. And I really am quite pleased with it. As you can see, it will fold and fit right into an envelope. And I love the fact that it has all of this dimension. When you make yours, you might experiment with putting that on 2 dimensionals to get that snowbank out just a little bit further, so it's really 3D for you. Well, that's it for me. Thank you so much for stopping by my YouTube channel today. I do so appreciate it. And I'm not sure how I'm going to put those together here, so But you can order this on my website, www.lbedinger.stampinup.net. And let's see, the prize draw. This is the last day for the prize draw, which is the Dashing Deer bundle. And then it'll be October. I can't believe it's already about to be October. If you don't already have a Stampin' Up! Demonstrator, I'd love to be your demonstrator. And you can get in my drawing for the Dashing Deer bundle by just placing an order on my website. Now, starting in October, we start a new quarter. And because the quarter will have already started, if you join Stampin' Up! Under me, you will have until the end of March to join. So it's a good time to think about becoming a demonstrator, even if what you want to do is do it just to get the discounts for yourself. Again, thanks so much for stopping by, and I'll be back soon with more cards and more projects. Bye!